Hello, I'm Shannon Caine, and welcome to the Caine Interviews. On today's program, we'll be interviewing the Reverend Dr. Herman C. Morgan III, D.D., a Wiccan minister in the Fayetteville area. He also serves in the somewhat unusual capacity of ministering to both Christians and pagans. We'll be talking about his ministerial role primarily within the pagan and occult circles, but we'll also discuss the multifaceted nature of his spiritual work among people of varying faith communities. Dr. Morgan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, I'd like to ask a brief question about your background. What drew you toward paganism as a spiritual path, or were you born into a pagan household?
Well, I was actually born and raised as a Southern Baptist, and as I got older and started reading more and more of the Bible, I realized that it was incomplete and very inconsistent. And I knew that there was a lot, I'd known for a while that there was a lot of books taken out of it, and the way I saw it, if they didn't want us to know this, then we're not going to be knowing the whole truth. So I went out on a search for a better version, in my opinion, of the truth, and I found it in the Wiccan religion.
All right. Well, aside from Wiccans, what other kinds of pagans might one find in the Northwest Arkansas area? And do you perform ministerial services for all of them?
Well, in the Northwest Arkansas area, I'm sure there are, as well as Wiccans, we probably have some Druids. The different amount of the different religions of paganism are as diverse as the different types of mindsets in the world. And so each pagan follows their own path, and I do minister to all of the pagans in the area, as well as to Christians, as you mentioned.
Okay. Often the terms pagan and Wiccan are used interchangeably. Could you tell us what the difference actually is between these terms, if any?
Well, when you call a Wiccan a pagan, it's like calling, say, a Presbyterian a Christian. Mm-hmm. I mean, the term pagan is a very broad, general term for all the nature religions. A Wiccan is a specific religion under the pagan label.
Okay. All right. Well, we've heard about the purported intolerance of fundamentalist Christianity toward Wicca. Do you think that some Wiccans are equally intolerant of Christians?
Well, I would hope not. Unfortunately, I'm sure that there are, granted, a small number of us who are really intolerant toward Christians. I won't name any names, but I know of one person who despises Christians with a passion, and that's not what the Wiccan path teaches. It teaches tolerance and love for all people, regardless of religion.
Okay. What do you think would be important steps toward establishing a meaningful Christian-pagan dialogue?
Well, the first thing I think would be that teach the Christians the truth about the pagan religion. We are not Satanists. We do not do evil works, except for a small percentage, and we do not claim them as our own. But once the Christians learn the truth, once Christianity learns the truth about paganism, I believe that is the biggest step we can take towards a mutual understanding. Okay. But until that happens, we're just going to have this animosity, and try as we might, we just can't seem to persuade them that we are not here to harm anybody.
All right. And I'll have some more commentary on that in a little bit.
Okay.
Now, you and I both know that Wicca is a very different thing from Satanism.
Yes.
But there are some uninformed individuals and groups that still believe they're one and the same. So could you explain to us the difference between Wicca and, say, LaVeyan Satanism?
Well, LaVeyan Satanism, basically, I've read the Satanic Bible, and basically, it teaches pretty much the exact opposite of the Christian religion. Whereas the Bible itself says, if a man strikes you, turn the other cheek. The LaVeyan Satanism Bible says, if the man smites you on your cheek, smash him on his. Wiccanism is actually closer to Christianity than it is to Satanism, because we do not encourage violence. We really don't condone violence. Like I said earlier, we have a tolerance for everybody for the most part. Like I said, there are a few pagans but we won't get into that. But Satanism is basically devoted to satisfying your carnal primal lusts, from what I understand from reading LaVey's work. And Wiccanism is glorifying in the body that and the bounty of nature, and giving thanks for everything nature has given us.
Okay. Now, Wiccans are not harmful to the community, and for that matter, the average Satanist isn't harmful to the community either. But having said that, do you have any comments that you would direct toward certain people who might believe that Wiccans pose a direct threat to society at large?
About the only thing I could think of would be to say that we are a peaceful religion, and that as evidenced in one of our main laws known as the Wiccan Rede, and it harm none, do what you will, which basically means as long as you're not hurting yourself, somebody else, or nature in general, just follow your heart.
Okay. Now, in your opinion, what are some of the most common public misconceptions about Wicca?
The fact that a lot of the stuff I've heard is that we sacrifice animals, we sacrifice people, we have wild orgies out in the woods, blood is everywhere and all that. It's entirely untrue. The orgy myth came from a practice known as being skyclad, which is basically being in your birthday suit when you practice in circle. And yes, there are some rites in the pagan and Wiccan religions that do call for sexual conduct, but it is usually between two people, not necessarily male or female. It just depends on personal preference, and it is in a private, enclosed environment, and it's a beautiful thing, and we really don't publicize that fact because it gives fuel to the fire that we have the orgies in the woods. As far as the blood goes, back in old days, yes, there used to be blood involved, but now we use wine symbolically as blood, much as the Christians do. And the sacrifice, about the only thing we sacrifice is if we take something from nature, we try to give something back to nature. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be diverting some of our spirit energy back into the fabric of the world.
Yeah. Now, there was a famous murder case in Louisiana in which both law enforcement officials and the media emphasized the fact that one of the defendants was a Wiccan priestess. In no other case that I could think of would a person's religion be brought into the trial. For instance, had the defendant been a Baptist, her religious preference simply would not have been mentioned. Do you see this kind of bias often?
Unfortunately, I do, because of the simple fact of the public's misconceptions about paganism and how it's supposed to be tied into Satanism. We just because we happen to be Wiccan, like this Wiccan priestess in the murder case, she is an exception that proves the rule that we are not normally violent. I mean, like you said, if the person had been Baptist, religion wouldn't have been brought up. The public misconception is just toward the fact that if they find out about you being Wiccan, you're gonna have to bet that it's gonna come up in the media or in police reports or whatever, and it's a type of profiling, and I can't say that I hate it because I can't really hate anything, but it really upsets me that people see us as violent people.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the United States military, veterans can be buried with certain governmentally sanctioned emblems of faith on their tombstones, and for many years they've refused to add a pagan pentacle to that list of emblems, despite many petitions from pagan veterans who say that they don't want to be buried as faithless. They do have a faith, and they certainly don't want to be buried with a Christian cross either. What is the government's problem with pagans? Why will they approve symbols for faiths that are statistically smaller than Wicca and continue year after year, decade after decade, to ignore these soldiers?
because the government and the military have only just recently recognized Wiccanism or paganism in general as an official religion. And as such, they're still kind of leery about, giving us too many rights because there's the old prejudices against against Satanism being tied in with Wiccanism and paganism. And what I believe is, say a family of a lost war hero is coming through a cemetery and they see all these other emblems, and all of a sudden they see on one tombstone a pentacle. I think that the government is so afraid that some family is going to take offense that they're just kowtowing to the right wings and not allowing it because of the fact that it would create controversy. And as people know right now, we've already got enough controversy in the government going on as we speak.
Okay, well, since we're talking about the pentacle as a symbol, can you explain to us the difference between a pentacle and a pentagram?
Yes, I can. A pentacle, they are both basically the same symbol, a five-pointed star within a circle. However, the pentacle, when viewed, has one point facing up and two facing down, which represents the five elements of Wiccanism: earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. In the pentagram, the satanic symbol, it's often inverted, or as is known, ill-dignified, with 2 points up, one down. And the reason for that is it's also a very good outline of the head of Baphomet, the goat of Mendes, which is one of the Satan deities. And it's like with the swastika. It was originally a Native American mystical symbol, and it was just inverted and reversed and put up on one point to symbolize something that I believe was very, very evil and very, very wrong.
Okay. The Buddhists also make great use of the swastika.
Yes, they do.
And, again, symbols can be corrupted in certain ways.
Yes.
The five-pointed star is also used as a symbol of the Order of the Eastern Star, the Women's Masonic Organization.
And as a matter of fact, my mom was an Eastern Star, and if you'll notice something, when they wear their ring, they wear their ring with 2 points up, one down, but without the circle around it. Mm-hmm. So what is that going to make people assume?
Mm-hmm. Well, now let's move on and talk about, if you will, pagan theology. Of course, as we've already established, many different types of pagans out there. Generally speaking, though, what would a Wiccan view of the afterlife be like? What would be the ultimate aim of Wicca?
The ultimate aim of Wicca is to bring your spirit energies into harmony with nature. And as far as an afterlife, we don't really have an afterlife per se. I believe that when we die, our consciousness, every thought we've ever had, every memory, every idea, every bit of information within us is dispersed throughout the consciousness of the rest of the universe. And I say rest of the universe because I think it's the height of human arrogance to assume we're alone in this universe.
Okay.
And so that would also explain instances of deja vu where you feel that you've done something before. Somebody else may have done it, and when they die, a bit of them has gone into you, and it may have been that particular bit.
Okay. Is there any sense of salvation in Wicca, to utilize a Christian term?
Not as Christians would see it, no. But basically, the way we see salvation is freedom from the rigors of the flesh and the freedom to travel the different planes, such as the astral planes, and to get... See, I believe that our consciousness, a part of our consciousness, keeps on going. And we travel the astral planes and all the other planes and parallel realities and all that. But it's just an ongoing process, basically.
Okay. Now, what is it like being male and following a religious path that is often thought to be dominated by women?
Well, it has proven to be interesting because people hear that I follow the Wiccan path, and they say, well, isn't that just like a bunch of girls who don't shave their legs and always smell like burning leaves and stuff? And what they don't realize is granted, the stereotypical Wiccan or witch is a female, but there are a large number and growing every day of males following the Wiccan path. And basically, it's just one of the misconceptions that I hope to see exploded.
Okay. Well, as a male Wiccan, do you prefer to be called a witch, a warlock, or something else altogether?
Actually, the term witch is the root word for the term Wicca. So there are male witches and there are female witches. The term witch is the original term, and I prefer to use the original term. I'm a male witch. I mean, I know people who prefer to be called warlocks or wizards, but seeing as how I'm a bit of a traditionalist, I prefer the original term.
Okay. Well, in closing, if a novice were interested in learning more about paganism, where would be a good place to start?
Online at, I forgot to tell the director for the graphic this, but there is a website called templeofwicca.com. You can learn pretty much all you need to know about there and other different websites. Just go to any browser and type in Wicca, religion, and you'll get hit on hundreds, if not thousands, of sites that have information on Wicca and paganism in general. Go to libraries, ask for help, look up the occult section, go to bookstores. There's any number of resources available to the novice if they choose to dedicate themselves to the path.
All right. Well, Dr. Morgan, thanks so much for being on today's program.
Thank you very much. I appreciated being on here.
All right. Well, you've been watching the Caine Interviews on Community Access Television. I'm your host, Shannon Caine. Be sure to tune in next time right here on Channel 18, and we'll see you then.